everyone. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about how the Democrats are beginning to shift on the mask mandate. And, there's such an interesting timing. I'm sure it has nothing to do with, like, Gavin Newsom getting roasted for being in a picture maskless with Magic Johnson. I'm sure it has nothing to do with that. I'm sure it has nothing to do with Eric Garcetti, and I'm sure it has nothing to do with like Stacey Abrams and all these other people, and all these people who are being filmed and having pictures taken of with them with no mask. I'm sure it has nothing to do with that. I'm sure it has everything to do with the fact that they are just following the science. I'm sure it has everything to do with the science, even though you had the governor of New Jersey on CNN, and they're like, do you have any data compared to like New Jersey, who's had all these restrictions versus other ones who didn't, and to see that this is kind of the right move? Or he's just like, I just knew New Jersey. I just know Jersey. So yeah, we're doing this now. We're doing this now. So I'm sure it has nothing to do with like internal polling that these guys must have. Nothing to do with that. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that the State of the Union is coming up pretty soon and Biden's going to want to announce all his victories and all these other stuff. I'm sure it has nothing to do with that. And these people are the most sincere people who ever cared about Americans, and they just wanted to keep them safe this whole entire time. They were following the data to the T, the science to the T, and now it's just time because science has allowed us to get there, and they were so brave and stunning and just beat back all the variants with a big old stick, and that's where we are. So we're going to be talking about that, obviously. We're also going to be talking about Clarence Thomas. There was plans to build a monument for him, and there's some Black Democrats, I guess, who are against it, and it was pretty fascinating. In the headlines for like The Hill and so on, they let it be known that it was Black legislators who are against it, and some of the reasoning isn't too bad. Like it's usually reserved for people who passed on, and he's still with us, and so I guess I could understand that reasoning. But that reasoning is rooted in they don't like the sort of policies that he has, and people, you don't agree with everyone that you raise monuments to. People do good things, momentous things. He's only the second Black person to be appointed to the Supreme Court. He's been on there for a long time. He's been a obviously an important figure on the court, and still is right now. So I think that's monument worthy. And it's from someone in that area, and you're just like, oh, look at this person, they did this great thing, they're from the area, so here's a monument to them. And but they're like, this is our objections, nothing to do with the fact that he's conservative. And I'm like, okay, that's very nice. They're like, he's a traitor. I'm like, whoa then. Okay, so you don't want him to have a statue because you don't like his policies and he's a traitor. I don't know why you thought that was better. I don't know why you thought announcing that would make things better. It's not. Totally not. So we're going to go through that article and some of the comments that they had. Also, I want to show you this fascinating video of that James King did. He went on the street. He does man on the street videos, and he was talking to people about the controversy with Joe Rogan. And there's all these white leftists or Democrats or whatever who's like, oh my gosh, it's so awful, it's so awful, it's so awful. I stand with Neil Young. And then when he got to some Black people, they're like, we don't care. And it's so funny, and I want to share it. I want to share with you guys. I think it's worth sharing. So we will talk about that today. Before we jump into it, I do want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on my website. Please check out different articles that I've written on there. I do have some goodies that's going to be coming to blacktnews.com very soon. So make sure that you guys are, signing up for emails and other things like that. I do want to thank the Brighter Michigan PAC. I'm in the studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. You're using the space, and I do appreciate them giving me the opportunity to uplift, them deciding to uplift conservative voices, and me being one of them. So I appreciate them, and there's no one to complain to if you don't like what I say here. It does not work like that. I am the master here of my destiny and of this podcast. So please make sure you guys check out different merchandise I also have on the website, like this awesome goat hoodie. Got those in different colors. I got the I am not the victim you're looking for. The Be Better Not Bitter shirt, which it would be so good. I'm wearing that today. There's so many people who have the craziest opinions on race, and I was scrolling through a TikTok the other day, and there is a mother who has a mixed child, a white woman. She has a mixed child, and she's talking about how she's just raising a good man. She just wants to raise a good man. She doesn't want to raise a white man, a black man. She just wants to raise a good man. And you would think something like that is pretty noble. And then there's this really big TikToker. I think she has maybe about 1 million, if not more, followers than that. She's a very big page. Her name is Auntie Karen. And she replies on that video and talks about how white people aren't making it hard on their children, because they're not preparing them for how the world is going to treat them, and all they're doing is making themselves feel good in the meantime. And that's insane. And I want to reply to it. I was trying to think about exactly how I was going to phrase it. But my contention is this: like, so many people want to talk about the world and these systems and how these like big collectives are going to treat you and how they're all racist and stuff. But a lot of these activists, they don't want to talk about individual like actions, individual hatred, individual racism. Because this person, she wouldn't say that she was racist because she's black, so she thinks she gets a pass. But she's one of the most racist people on that app. She says racist stuff all the time, and she gets a pass. So if you have a child out there, whether you are black or you're white or you're Asian, whatever race you are, and whatever race of a child you are raising, because maybe they're mixed, maybe you have adopted, whatever the case may be, you have to know and prepare yourself and prepare your children. Just try to make them be good people. There's nothing wrong with what that mother said. She wants to raise her son to be a good man, period. And we don't have enough good, strong men in this world right now. That's just a fact. But it is a reality that there's toxic people out there. There's toxic people like this Auntie Karen. And you can't shield yourself from them totally. You can try to not associate with those people. You should try not to have toxic friends in your life. You should limit your association with toxic relatives if you can. But you are going to have to learn to deal with toxic people. So you can prepare the world like that. But all these like people out here, these activists who don't think that they are racist, trying to condemn the whole entire world, everybody but them, it drives me up a wall. So that's one of the reasons. I don't want to go too far in my soapbox today, but that's one of the reasons why I made this shirt, Be Better Not Bitter. So that's available at blacktnews.com. I think it's a nice one that you guys can get for since it is Black History Month. And also got this cool Frederick Douglass shirt as well. So check out the merchandise that we have on blacktnews.com. If you would like to support Black Tea News, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate and support Black Tea News. Whatever you guys do, I very much appreciate. And I appreciate when you guys share. I do see you in the comments. Hello, hope you guys are doing good today. So before I jump into the news of the day, I do have a comic book, and this is one of my favorite people who I show all the time. Pretty much if he has a comic book up for the day, I will use it. This one's a little old, but this is one of the Joe Rogan one, and it looks more like a typical kind of political comic book here. But There he is, like drawn like a horse, because people were talking about the horse dewormer with his ivermectin, and he's just smoking common sense. And Joe Rogan is no one to take like super serious. He has a huge amount of followers, but they're so intimidated by him because he will not just fall over and go with what they all want him to do and what they want him to say. They were probably really offended when he was like, Biden is like a dying flashlight in the woods, like you don't know if he's going to survive. And that was like an amazing amazing analogy there that Rogan used. But of course they're really upset with Rogan because of different people he had on his podcast regarding the vaccine and vaccine hesitancy, and he himself, told people, like, consult your doctor. He's like, but this is what I did, this is what worked for me. And to just pretend like he's taken like some horse medicine, like he robbed the veterinarians or something. He like, and his words, like, I can afford real people medicine. And he used some explicit language after that. But they really hate this guy, and they are really coming for him hard. So we touched a little bit on the controversy the other day that emerged in the weekend with some people clipping some old clips of Joe Rogan using the N-word, which in the context of him quoting something, not calling someone like an N-word maliciously, which people related to the Young Turks using the N-word a lot, actually, it seemed. And versus, because Joe Rogan is at least a comedian talking about it, like I expect he probably listens to that rap music and other stuff that's in it. And so when the compilations of Young Turks, I'm like, man, I guess there's context here, but they have said it quite a bit, it seemed like. And then they also played clips of Joe Biden saying it in the past. Now there's context involved with all that, but they didn't want to have context for Rogan. So anyway, it's this huge controversy over the weekend, and a lot of his stuff got pulled. And so actually Rumble, the CEO of Rumble, offered him $100 million for an exclusive contract on Rumble. I didn't see that he responded in any sort of way. I don't think Spotify would want to get Joe out of the contract, but they are definitely between a rock and a hard place. But they just need to be like, you know what? No, but they have conceded on some grounds, and people see that there's blood in the water. So I don't think it's just going to stop. But I did want to show you guys this video that someone put together of people talking about, like on the man in the street type of video, asking people how they feel about this issue with Joe Rogan. And I think it's hilarious.
He's terrible.
He's terrible?
He should be off Spotify. I'm behind Neil Young all the way.
It's offensive, and it's not our choice. It's not his choice, and shouldn't be using it.
He's been doing a lot of crazy lately. He just thinks he can do whatever he wants, you know?
Do you guys care?
Absolutely not.
Hell no.
I don't care.
What about you?
Not at all.
He's not saying nothing bad to me, so I don't care. I don't give a
Do I care about Joe Rogan generally or this issue specifically? No, but people are going to want to be upset about whatever they're going to be upset about.
Does it bother you or does it not?
As soon as I get me a show, it's first thing I'm gonna say, I made it.
If anything that George Floyd taught us was to open our eyes and actually see what's in front of us and actually address it, not just keep ignoring it. And by keeping him on, we're ignoring it.
George Floyd taught us that, huh? Okay. What does that mean? In what world did they live into 2020 that's what they learned from? Did she get that from a sermon from Floyd, like when he was on a Temple Mount or something? What the heck? I don't know what world these people live in, but you can kind of see the sort of people who are outraged about Rogan and want him off the air versus like everyday normal people who are like, whatever, doesn't bother me. And you know why it really doesn't bother a lot of people? Because they think a lot of people use the word anyway. So they're really not surprised when a comedian over 30 years old has used it before. You can think that's right or that's wrong. I'm telling you, a lot of people believe that people are saying it anyway. That's why that scene in White Chicks I mentioned the other day, maybe it's a little too real for you guys. Maybe I'm a little too real for you today. Maybe I'm a little too real. But if you saw that movie White Chicks with the Wayans brothers, there's a scene in the car. If you don't know the premise of the movie, two Wayans brothers, they're both cops. They weren't brothers in the film, but they were supposed to protect these two rich white girls, and then they ended up like messing up their face or something like that, so they wouldn't go to the party. So they were experts in like undercover stuff, so they dressed up like the white girls, and they were like impersonating them at this like Hamptons weekend. And so they were hanging out with their friends, and they were in a car. That's where the 1,000 miles with like Terry Crews comes from. And so they were listening to that song at first, and then they were like, let's change the station. And then it was like a rap song that came on. And then they were really into it, and the girls are looking like, what is this? And so the Wayans, still in the white face makeup, dropped the N-word. And then they're like, oh, we can't believe you said that. And they're like, why? He's like, you can't say that. And they're like, nobody's around. And they all look around a little bit. And then they turn back on the music, and everyone in the car knew the lyrics to the song. So I thought that scene was funny. I know people want to act like that film was so offensive. I'm sorry. I thought the movie was funny, and I don't say that in an apology sort of, I'm like sincerely apologizing sort of way. I guess it's just a deal with it kind of way. But I know there's a lot of music out there that people purchase. It's not just black people buying music with rap words, or it's not even just rap. Like Beyonce had one of her songs that Meghan McCain was like, I listened to this in the kitchen, and she claimed that she doesn't say it or whatever when she's alone in her kitchen listening to it. If it's that offensive, then don't purchase music with the word, and don't sell it to white people, like make it exclusive, like you must be this shade to buy my music. So if people don't want to make it mainstream, just let it die. But people pretending like this is such a huge thing for Joe Rogan that's worth like canceling him over, they're just looking for reasons to cancel him. But all those black people are like, we don't care. And I think a lot more people don't care than what you think. So I'm sorry if it was a little too real for you guys today. But I thought that was an amusing man on the street video that really says a lot. And I know there was just a couple people, but he said every single black person, they said they didn't run into a single black person that cared about the Joe Rogan using the N-word. So I thought it was interesting. So let's move on to I'm going to talk about this Clarence Thomas situation next. So Clarence Thomas, of course, we are aware of who Clarence Thomas is. And you know what people have been talking about, obviously, because Biden wants to nominate a black woman specifically to the Supreme Court. And we've talked about the sort of hypocrisy. We talked about that a lot yesterday, actually. There was a diversity, equity, inclusion history teacher who was trying to explain why something like that is actually important, and why all the people who feel discriminated against, specifically she was referring to white people, but it was not just technically white people who were being discriminated against. She was explaining why it wasn't a big deal, and of course I just explained why her whole entire argument was silly, and why we probably shouldn't have teachers indoctrinate with the diversity, equity, and inclusion. But one thing is that people act like it's so sacred to be black, but I'm like, well, what kind of black are you talking about? Are you just talking about like ethnicity, race, and so on? Because if that's the case, why is it that there's some people on the political spectrum that you just despise? Because I remember when they're like, well, if we're correcting a right, or that's what Joe Biden is doing. Like, I recall when he committed a grave wrong against Clarence Thomas, and I didn't have this queued up yesterday, but if you've never seen Clarence Thomas, and when he gave his speech about all the stuff that they did to him in the high-tech lynching, it is something to see.
Committee will please come to order. Judge, it's a tough day and tough night for you, I know. Let me ask, do you have anything you'd like to say before we begin? I understand that your preference is, which is totally and completely understandable, that we go 1 hour tonight, 30 minutes on each side. Am I correct in that?
That's right.
Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Senator, I would like to start by saying unequivocally, uncategorically, that I deny each and every single allegation against me today that suggested in any way that I had conversations of a sexual nature or about pornographic material with Anita Hill, that I ever attempted to date her, that I ever had any personal sexual interest in her, or that I in any way ever harassed her. A second, and I think more important point, I think that this today is a travesty. I think that it is disgusting. I think that this hearing should never occur in America. This is a case in which this sleaze, this dirt, was searched for by staffers of members of this committee, was then leaked to the media, and this committee and this body validated it
Biden, man.
and displayed it at prime time over our entire nation. How would any member on this committee, any person in this room, or any person in this country would like sleaze said about him or her in this fashion, or this dirt dredged up, and this gossip and these lies displayed in this manner? How would any person like it? The Supreme Court is not worth it. No job is worth it. I'm not here for that. I'm here for my name, my family, my life, and my integrity. I think something is dreadfully wrong with this country when any person in this free country would be subjected to this. This is not a closed room. There was an FBI investigation. This is not an opportunity to talk about difficult matters privately or in a closed environment. This is a circus. It's a national disgrace. And from my standpoint, as a black American, as far as I'm concerned, it is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it is a message that unless you kowtow to an old order, this is what will happen to you. You will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by a committee of the U.S. Senate rather than hung from a tree.
Damn, powerful. Absolutely powerful. Joe Biden, ladies and gentlemen, presided over this. Now, my parents were not Republican at this time. They were still Democrats, not like flaming, I guess you could say, but they were Democrats. And they didn't believe Anita Hill. Nobody believed Anita Hill. Her story didn't make any sense. So it really bothered me when like Kamala Harris, when Kavanaugh's hearing popped up, she's like, do you believe Anita Hill? Like, why are you bringing that up? Oh, because I'm trying to think of a word that's not too mean. I'm just gonna say trash. Because you're trash. People hate when I say that. I'm like, trash, you're trash. Hated that when she did that. Just so wildly insincere. So we remember Biden. We remember Biden and how he actually felt about when a black person was last on the Supreme Court and he got to preside, and they just dragged him through the mud. And as Clarence Thomas said, this is what happens when Negroes get too uppity. They want to cut him down. And it's not just that, but he was the wrong kind of Negro because he had the wrong kind of thinking, the wrong sort of mentality. So when Democrats talk about, oh, race, and they try to uphold it like it's so important, It's not about being black, it's their idea of blackness. Because if you do not fit the mold that they gave you permission, they give you permission to think a certain way, feel a certain way. In a lot of cases, program you to feel a certain way. If you do not agree, if you do not march along with what they tell you, then you're destroyed, utterly destroyed. So Biden and them being like, oh, we're going to appoint a black woman. I'm sure you'll appoint someone who's going to fit, your sort of ideology. And we would expect that in anyone. But don't pretend like you hold blackness in such a high regard, or being black in such a high regard, when it's the wrong kind of black, they're a problem for you. So Clarence Thomas, and here's AP was like, black lawmakers blast plans for monument to Justice Thomas. What a headline. What a headline. So there's this thing that they're going to do to honor this man, and they frame this headline still to be so disrespectful and so disgraceful. And some of the stuff that they said was pretty disgraceful. So this is the AP. It's on the Yahoo site. I'm reading this from Atlanta, AP. Georgia's Republican-controlled Senate voted Monday to erect a monument to conservative U.S. Supreme Court Justice and Georgia native Clarence Thomas after a heated debate and objections from several black senators, one of whom called Thomas a hypocrite and a traitor. The monument would be financed by private donations and would be erected somewhere at the state capitol if the measure were to receive final passage. It was approved by a vote of 32 to 21 and now goes to the state house for consideration. So that so this is going to be private, by the way. It's not like, their state money is going to it. Statues honoring people at the state capitol are generally put up after their deaths. Some opponents of the monument for Thomas said lawmakers should at least wait until he retires. That's because you don't know what else is going to come up in the lifetime of an individual, said Senator Nan Orrock, an Atlanta Democrat. You put a statue up of him, you don't know if you'd be pulling it down later if things go badly, if the person goes astray. Well, I guess they're just ready to pull down all kinds of statues from what we've seen in the past 2 years. So, we might as well just put up and see what happens. Former President Jimmy Carter, who is 97, has a statue at the state capitol, a rare honor for someone still alive. The statue made him worthy of a monument, and the same goes for Thomas, said State Senator Ben Watson, a Republican from Savannah, who co-sponsored the bill for Thomas. I didn't agree with everything that President Carter did. He is a great Georgian and a president we should be proud of, Watson said. I don't know about that one. Y'all can be proud that y'all got a president from Georgia. I wouldn't be proud of Carter, but you gotta uplift your dude, I guess. I would hope that you would feel the same way about Justice Thomas. He is a wonderful person. Thomas was born in Pinpoint, Georgia, and grew up in Savannah. He was nominated to the U.S. Supreme Court by President George H.W. Bush in 1991 and became the court's second black justice. For the past 30 years, he has been among the most conservative Supreme Court justices and now wields considerable influence with the addition of 3 appointees of former President Donald Trump who have moved the court further to the right. Thomas has called on justices to overturn the landmark Roe v. Wade decision that extended abortion rights access across the country. He has also opposed affirmative action and a key part of voting rights legislation enacted during the civil rights movement. Those positions drew criticism Monday from Democrat State Senator Nikki Merritt, who said they undermine African Americans. Okay, I understand people's intense feelings about affirmative action, and I understand the arguments of why people felt that they needed it. However, we are aware that it discriminates against Asians. We are aware that it discriminates against Asians. One time I was having a conversation, and this was with a person who was like pretty much on the right, but they were black, and they're like, well, if it was my child, I'd want it. Like, I understand, like, you want your child to have an advantage, but I'm like, that's because your child's not Asian. That's because your child's not Asian. So that when you make all these rules to sort of undo these injustices and sort of just trying to make everything sort of on equal ground, you're picking winners and losers. So I understand there was all these negative things that happened to African Americans throughout the history of the United States. But we're pretty much on an even playing field right now. But it's not for Asian students, and they can have better grades, and they're all competing against each other. And then someone with who's not doing as well, whether they're white or they're black or Hispanic, will get in rather than these Asian kids competing against each other. And it's not fair. It's not fair to them. So I understand people being all for the affirmative action, but to feel that that you can't like Clarence Thomas because of his position on that, if you're on the Supreme Court, your commitment should be toward the law. It should be toward the law. And what's constitutional and what's fair according to the law. So if there's some kind of issue, which they are taking up a case with Harvard, and there's good information that they are discriminating against Asians, it's just going to get shot down. But I understand how people feel about it and have felt about it in the past. But we know that it is discriminatory. And maybe people wouldn't feel as bad if it was just against white people, which still wouldn't be right. But we know there's another minority group who is negatively impacted by affirmative action. It's just the truth. And so it goes on. It's not that we have a problem that he is conservative or a Republican. I'm glad. But Merritt goes on and says, and Merritt, who is black, said, "We think he's a hypocrite and a traitor." So it's not that he's Republican and conservative. He's just a hypocrite and a traitor. That's why we can't support Clarence Thomas. Why? Okay, so why do you feel that he's a hypocrite and a traitor? Because he holds conservative views? Because he doesn't march along to the beat of your drum? That makes him a hypocrite and a traitor? Because you think the blackest thing you can do is keep in policies that discriminates against another minority? That would be the right black thing to do? She added, "It seems like white America keeps wanting to promote Justice Thomas, but we see more evidence when time and time again he subverts the struggles of black Americans." I kind of want to push my computer and just walk away. This stuff is infuriating. This stuff is infuriating. That you have people making laws who feel like this, who justify this, who are bold enough to say this openly. People mad at Whoopi Goldberg. What Whoopi Goldberg said was disgusting on The View. This is disgusting. This is disgusting. How does Clarence Thomas subvert the struggles of black Americans? Because if you're specifically mentioning, we don't need to talk more about the affirmative action thing. How? Well, because he's against abortion, which disproportionately kills so many black kids, which Planned Parenthood was founded by eugenicist Margaret Sanger and then taken over. A lot of people want to cancel her and be like, well, she was problematic, so we're not going to talk about her anymore. Planned Parenthood actually denounced her. People like Hillary Clinton got a Margaret Sanger Award, by the way, back in the day. The person who took over Planned Parenthood, Alan Guttmacher, was also a eugenicist. And he was way more gung-ho about abortion than even she was. So she was more about birth control. He was abortion all day long. And you can say, well, it's a woman's choice. Yeah, and they put these clinics in these neighborhoods where they're like predatory lenders. going out to hunt for their customers. So, what is it about Clarence Thomas that makes you think he's a traitor and hypocrite and subverts the struggles of Black Americans? Because I played for you when he had his struggles himself in 1991, when Joe Biden, who's the current president of the United States, let all this filth come up about him with Anita Hill, which was an obvious lie, but was used to put an uppity Negro in his place. This man from this state, he is not a young man. He is not a young man. He has faced discrimination. He has faced struggles. He has seen America and lived through it when it was in a much darker place. And they have the audacity to say these things about Clarence Thomas. Mayor also cited sexual harassment allegations against Thomas by former employee Anita Hill during his bruising 1991 confirmation hearing. Charges he denied, which people polled during that time. People didn't believe Anita Hill. Again, my parents were not Republican at the time. They watched those hearings and they're like, everybody thought she was lying. Her story didn't make sense. Watson later blasted Merritt's comment as a waste of time and name calling. Watson should have went harder than that. Man, under his bill, a committee of state lawmakers appointed by the House Speaker, Governor, and Lieutenant Governor, all currently Republicans, would have the final say over the design and placement of the monument to Thomas. So he has a great story, and you don't always make statues to people who have like perfect lives with no speckles on them, no people with no sins, but you erect monuments because people have had great accomplishments. And he's had a great accomplishment. He's been a powerhouse on the court. I pray to God that he will live long enough to be replaced by a Republican president, because it would be so awful if all people to replace Clarence Thomas was Joe Biden. That would be awful. But again, people were like, "Oh, we got to appoint a Black woman to the Supreme Court." You guys do not hold just being Black in such high regard. Do you guys remember 2020? I think it was Ebony magazine. They did an article about all these Black people running for Congress and Senate, what was probably just Congress, or just running all over the country. And everyone on their list was Democrat. And so people were like, what about all these Black Republicans? So they ended up doing another like part 2 later. But we know how it goes. You don't want people to know that people think differently because you only have one approved standard of Blackness. You have one approved standard. Larry Elder, when he was running for governor in the recall, he had this great interview. It was like an hour long with a bunch of different newspapers. And he was talking about why he was explaining why there's so many people who think a certain way as far as like Democrats and so on. And I've broken down that in episodes before. I did one episode that was like an hour long and just broke it down. I think there were 3 main reasons. I won't go into that today, but I'll try to find it and reshare it on social media if you guys missed it. But he explained how there would be like Jet magazines and things like that would be like a staple in the Black community, Black families. And they'd be like at barber shops and salons and all these places. And they'd always have like these profiles and people would be on the covers and people talk about getting on the jet and so on. And you wouldn't see someone like Clarence Thomas on those things. They would have people of a particular ideology. Now, it wasn't always like about, it wasn't always about politics. That wasn't always the focus and stuff like that. But people don't want you to know about men like Clarence Thomas. And when men like Clarence Thomas rise, people like Joe Biden try to shut them down. The same man who tried to shut him down in 1991 is the same man in 2020 who said, if you even think about not voting for me, then you ain't Black. People don't change that much. And apparently Joe hasn't. his status, of course, has changed. Instead of being a low down, dirty senator, he's a low down, no good president. So, those are my thoughts. Let's move on. Let's move on. I think I'm as heated or as expressed about this topic as I can be. Let's move on. So we know that the Democrats have been caught maskless as of late, recently, and they've been saying, been on the mask. We talked yesterday about Stacey Abrams, and she was like, how dare these Republicans be upset and try to use this event I was at trying to promote reading, and it's Black History Month. How dare they? I'm like, how dare you, morbidly obese woman who's older than these kids, you're at a bigger risk, and you're there taking a picture. And she tried to admit that nothing was wrong, but I was listening to Ben show a little bit. He said that she was like switching up the someone on her campaign, I guess, would have been responsible for putting this out there. But she did originally tweet this out, and then she ended up removing this picture. But the internet's forever. This is going to be on so many different ads, and it should be, because there's no data to really support that the kids need to wear masks like this. And in other countries, some of them didn't even have masking like this, and we just pushed it so crazy, even though we know that kids have very little risk with the COVID. Kids at this age are just as likely to suffocate. Likely to get into a car accident, probably on the way to school, than to die of COVID. It's just very, very rare. Very, very rare. And I've showed this graph a lot. Last I looked at the numbers in November, it was like the children who died of COVID, at least 1 to 4, was maybe 68. But it was like under, and if it was like, I think 1 to 12, I don't even know if the number got to 400 or something. I mean, the numbers are just astronomically small, and you could be like, one death is too many. Even one is tragic, but that doesn't account for like some of these people who would have died from COVID still would have other sort of core morbidities and something going on that would help attribute to it. Like young, healthy kids in that age bracket aren't dying of COVID. As a matter of fact, I don't know if, if it was just with COVID or of COVID at that point either. And by the way, the Biden White House, they announced they are going to start kind of mixing up or changing how they count cases at the hospital. So you must remember early on in the pandemic when people would say, are people actually dying of COVID, or are they dying with COVID? Like, if they would have had something else, but they had COVID and that's how they died? Is that what it is? Or did COVID itself cause the death? Are people hospitalized with COVID, or they just have COVID? Like what? But if you ask those questions, people looked at you funny. People were very mad at you. They were very angry at you. Well, now the Biden administration, they want you to keep in mind that when people go to the hospital, whether they're actually going to the hospital because of COVID or if they happen to have COVID when they go to the hospital. So now they're ready. They're gearing up. The State of the Union is coming upon us pretty fast. And Biden is going to want to be like, oh, I did it. You know, we defeated COVID, all these policies that we had, all these mandates, all these lockdowns and stuff. We did what we had to, and we got the virus under control, just like I promised on the campaign trail. Aren't I so great? And they're going to want to turn the country in a different direction, especially because I'm sure they have internal polling that is scaring the crap out of them. I'm sure they do. So, they don't want all these cases to still be popping up, because you still have people on the news who are like, well, we're getting rid of masks, but these cases are still high. So if they start changing the cases, that they're not going to count it unless you actually come to the hospital because of COVID, that number is going to dramatically fall, especially since this variant is way less deadly compared to Delta than the original. There's not many people going to the hospital compared to like when it first started, when, you know, that need to be, you know, have serious care or they're not going to make it. So they ain't slick. They're really not slick, but we have so many people who are gullible suckers and they really don't want to be wrong about wasting their lives these past few years. So they're gonna be like, yes, we did it, we worked together, and we accomplished it. When the truth is that the viruses had to like ride out. That's what happens, and Omicron is less deadly, but it transmits more. So a lot of people got infected with that, perhaps didn't even know, and they got that sort of natural immunity, and it's overtaken the Delta and so on, and maybe we'll have another variant that's more intense than this, or maybe everything will keep getting to like such a small thing, and maybe they'll get to the point where they're just like, stop talking about it at all, and like stop putting on the news, and they'll all get like a little, I don't know, alert in their phone or email, and they'll be like, okay, check, we'll do that. Who knows? But we know a lot of this is about politics, and it has been a lot about politics. But I do think it's interesting. Stacey Abrams got dissed the other day because of the mask. And she wasn't the only one. Alyssa Slotkin. I mean, Stacey Abrams was at a school, so that was pretty bad. Now Alyssa Slotkin from my state, she was at an event in Owasso, Michigan, and so she wasn't masked, and everyone else behind her is masked. I don't understand. There's so many people who have selfies with mask on. She didn't need to not have a mask when she took this selfie, if they really want to be a beacon of, hey, everyone should wear the mask and do the responsible thing. So I don't understand their psychology around posting this, and she posted herself. It's not like someone like snuck and did it. That is a selfie picture. So there's that. But Gavin Newsom got in trouble because he was at a game and he saw Magic Johnson, someone who is has HIV, so he is compromised with his immune system, and so people are like, dude, you're not. Why aren't you wearing a mask? Why aren't you wearing a mask? So he had an explanation. It wasn't true though.
As it relates to, you're correct, I was very judicious yesterday, very judicious, and you'll see the photo that I did take, where Magic was kind enough, generous enough to ask me for a photograph, and in my left hand's the mask, and I took a photo. The rest of the time I wore it, as we all should, not when I had a glass of water or a thing, and I encourage everybody else to do so, and that's it.
Fox 11, I know you probably want to make that the last word on this, but given your history with this issue, should you maybe have reconsidered taking the mask off for the photo, for the image, the message that it might send?
I mean, of course, I was trying to be gracious, and I made a I was trying to be gracious and took the mask off for a brief second, but no, I encourage people to continue to wear them. I want to just say this, because it's important. Today was an important day, down to 14.5% positivity, which is a very encouraging sign. Remarkable that 14.5% positivity would be considered an encouraging sign. But we are seeing a significant decline in the number of confirmed cases of Omicron.
Yeah, it's Omicron. So his history, if you are unaware, if you don't remember, which was a huge story when it happened, but he was at the French Laundry, this really ritzy restaurant, with his friends and other lobbyists and donors or whatever they all were, but he wasn't masked. They weren't social distancing. And of course, of people, this is like when the height of like lockdown going on, people losing their businesses, trying to figure out how they're going to survive, and he's just eating it up, having a good old time in his rich liberal privilege sort of way. So he does have a history. So again, being busted with this picture just really is not acceptable. Especially, people should be living their lives and happy and whatever, not have to like think about this mask like and stuff all the time. However, when you're one of the people who are enforcing all these dumb rules, you really should do your best to follow them. And by the way, I was just being judicious, and he asked for a picture. You guys can be the judge. Did that look like he was just like, oh, like, hey, you want a picture so bad, let me take off my mask here? Is that what it looks like happened? I do give it to Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't know how long he did or didn't have his mask on, but at least he is like an environmental sort of. I was going to say freak, but I didn't want it to be too mean. But he's really, really on that kind of stuff. So kudos to him, at least for, I guess, wearing the mask in that environment. I don't know how much he actually follows that in general, but at least, he was. But there's other people obviously in that scene who weren't. If you want to watch it again really quick. Gavin Newsom, like, yeah, Gavin Newsom just coming up to him. Look. So his story sounds a little fishy to me. His story sounds a wee bit fishy to me, but he's not the only one. Eric Garcetti of LA got caught as well. And he just said, you know what? I hold my breath.
And when people ask for a photograph, I hold my breath and I put it here and people could see that. There's a 0% chance of infection from that.
There's a 0% chance when you hold your breath and you hold your mask, because it gives you the power of Grayskull. When you hold your mask and you hold your breath and you just become He-Man, and then you won't catch any COVID because your immune system is too powerful. It's too powerful. Of course that's ridiculous. They just got caught. They're just not all they're not terrified, and you shouldn't be terrified because there's no data to be terrified. And even if there was to be like a little terrified, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? We should have been trying to ease people back into like some kind of normalcy from the beginning, and not like disrupt the whole economy, not tear up people's liberties and their rights and their freedoms and all that kind of stuff. But it was politically expedient. It was politically expedient, this virus, for a lot of people, and they pushed and they pushed and they pushed, and I don't know why they pushed so hard for so long, but we are getting to the point where they are going to draw back because it's really not popular. And there's still hysterical people who will be hysterical. I know someone who has not like left their house since like the beginning of all this. They are too scared. They won't like leave at all. So there's still people out there who are living in such terror, and it's unforgivable how freaked out we made people in this world. And I think the US is particularly bad at it. I mean, there's other places. Australia, of course, is really bad, but I think the US has been really bad as far as the propaganda compared to some other places like in the UK and stuff. But a lot of people just saw it as politically, they got a bone from the universe. When Trump said 15 days to slow the spread, that was the beginning of the end of his presidency, and they held on to as much power as they could for as long as they could. And I don't understand where all the money is, or if you follow all the rabbit holes, and why Biden decided to go so hard on so many things with so many bad policies that were obviously bad for so long. But they are getting to a point where they got to kind of let it go. So California is going to draw back on the mask mandates and stuff. If you're not vaccinated, you still have to wear it, because that's still science. It's not, but they're starting to draw back on that. In New Jersey, they're starting to draw back on that. I was talking to somebody today who lives in an area where they're really forcing mandates, couldn't do anything, couldn't go anywhere. And the company and stuff was like not letting people come into the building unless they're vaccinated. So I just was like, hey, if you just want to hold out a couple more weeks, and you can tell other people this, if you just hold out a couple more weeks, I'm pretty sure that people are going to start getting more lax on this stuff after Biden's State of the Union address. And they had already, I guess, conceded or whatever, but at that point in time, so maybe I should have sent that text a little bit earlier, but I didn't really think about that. But they are getting to that point where I think Biden's going to want that victory march, take that victory lap and be like, hey, I did something. I'm so great. Look at me. And we defeated the virus just like I said I would. But Jen Psaki also said this the other day about the White House was still recommending masks, but I'm sure they'll reverse this.
Good. Back on the mask mandate question in New Jersey and other states, the CDC is still recommending universal masking in schools.
That's correct, and that still remains our recommendation.
Oh, it's still our recommendation. Oh, okay. I'm sure they'll change their mind about that eventually too. I'm sure they will. She also said like local she also bashed like local governments who are like Youngkin, for example, who's like, we're gonna ban the mask mandates, or you can't make people wear masks, and they sued him, and they're like, no, we should be able to do it. And people have come against him so hard. Someone actually said that he wasn't Christian. Someone actually said this man wasn't Christian. Did you guys? I don't know if you guys saw this. This happened like maybe a week or two ago, but this was crazy.
Again, there is a lot going on right now. When I was here about a month ago with freshmen, unexpectedly, the governor-elect at the time, he came in this chamber with the freshmen who were being trained and taught and talked about how we do things on the floor. And the first things that I recall him saying was that he had a strong prayer life and that he was praying for everybody. And so far, what I've seen from his day one activities is not someone who is a man of faith, not a Christian, but someone who wants to divide the Commonwealth. Someone that wants to cause division in this Commonwealth. I know the truth hurts. I don't want to make you cry like saying critical race theory, because I know it hurts your feelings. I just want to say.
So, to judge someone's faith like over their politics, it's not like he has like. If you're gonna make those kind of comparisons, you could at least have the politics like match it up with the scripture of like doing something that is actually anti-biblical. Like if you were pro-abortion or something, and someone's like, that is not a Christian position, you could actually have some like biblical backing for that. And I did write an article about that on blacktnews.com if you're interested. But we're talking about like you're mad at him saying he's unchristian because he's dividing people because what? Because they don't want your kids indoctrinated with the CRT stuff. Because if you don't know that CRT causes division, then you don't know anything about it. Okay, I've written about that on blacktnews.com too. You can go check out the stuff on the website. But the drama they're causing with the mask, if parents want to send their kids to school with a mask, if kids want to wear the mask, they can wear the mask. But to still force it, knowing that there's not good data and science to back it up, is just insane. It doesn't make any sense. And people are starting to see that, and you see these people drawing back. Is the governor of New Jersey going to be looked at by the Democrats like he's an unchristian fool trying to cause division because he's like drawing back on the mask mandates, or is it just Youngkin? Is it just Youngkin who's going to get that sort of hatred? I mean, of course, there's also DeSantis. People still hate him, but is it just Youngkin? And you know, I was glad that there was a Republican who stood up against this insanity and did trash talk him for a little bit. I'm going to play a little bit of the video of this reply after this nonsense, because well, somebody had to say it. Somebody had to say it. You guys have probably seen this. This was viral.
Speaker, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
The delegate has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was asked by a colleague of mine on the other side of the aisle, someone I actually deeply respect, and she asked me, was I going to be nice this session? And I thought it was an interesting question. I don't particularly think of myself as an unnice person, but I can see how sometimes people would see that differently. But you know what I've never done, Mr. Speaker? I've never got on this floor and I've challenged the faith of an elected official because I disagreed with them on policy. I've never gone on this floor, Mr. Speaker, and suggested that the other side of the aisle were racist because they didn't agree with my particular policy positions. I've never suggested they were sexist because they didn't agree with my particular policy positions. But I'm keeping a running tally so far of this session. We're not very far into it. And almost every day, someone on the other side of the aisle either gets up and either subtly or comes right out and suggests that if you don't agree with them on policy, well, then you're not a Christian, you're a sexist, you're a bigot, you're a racist. But the moment someone actually stands up and says, wait a second, no, I'm not going to accept that. If you want to debate me on the merits of our particular policies, I am happy to have that discussion. But the moment you claim, with no evidence other than we don't agree on a particular policy position, the moment you claim that that makes us racist or sexist or bigoted, Mr. Speaker, I've got news. This was tried during the election cycle. You had a lot of parents coming to their local elected officials asking questions about what was going on in their schools. And the initial response was, oh, it's not there. And then when they saw evidence that it was, based off of what their kids were coming home and saying to them, and they went back and reissued the concern, then they got told, oh, well, then you must be a racist. Because that has been the repeated narrative coming from certain members of the other side of the aisle.
You know, it must be so exhausting. It is exhausting to live in this world or whatever. I think if you're going to run for any sort of position, you got to be ready to go hard, like him right here. You got to be ready to go hard at these people, because they've used sexist, homophobic, bigot, racist, all this kind of stuff, and then attacking people's faith. It's just ridiculous, and you got to let it roll off your back. But sometimes you got to tell people off. So I'm glad he told them off. It's ridiculous that people would say, "Oh, he said he was a man of faith, but he's not acting like a man of faith." Why? Did he, I don't know, put a baby on an altar and like a Moloch statue or something? Like, what did he do? Oh, he doesn't want people to be forced to wear masks. Oh, he doesn't want CRT taught in schools. Debate on the merits. Debate on the merits. But this is like exhausting. Just the political process and stuff. What people from the other side just keep throwing at people who disagree with them. It is exhausting, but I hope people are too tired to put up with it anymore. I hope people are too tired to let this go on and let this continue and just be like, you know what, I got to take that. No, you don't have to take that. You don't have to take these allegations. Don't let people get distracted by all this kind of stuff. I know sometimes people get distracted, but you know what? Find a way to cut through all this stuff and just get to the meat of the conversation. And you know what? And go make the case to the people, because they will learn, like they learned in Virginia during the election time, that people were sick and tired of their elected officials not listening to them, to lying to them, gaslighting them, when their kids, not just the parents, their children, were upset, in some cases abused. In Loudoun County, we've talked about that case where that girl was attacked and raped in a bathroom, and the superintendent was like, oh, we don't know of any situations like that, knowing that was good and well that was a lie. So y'all gonna find out during election time. And I pray to God that people keep same energy, same passion that we have right now, and continuing on to 2022 in the midterms and then 2024. And just because Biden is going to get up and do his State of the Union and pretend like it's all peaches and cream and that he's the one who made it that way, that we won't listen to that nonsense. And I think it's disgusting, the sort of tactics people have, the sort of thinking with this man who said that stuff about Youngkin, and the people in Georgia who talked about Clarence Thomas, who called him a traitor and a hypocrite. And we're not going to progress as a country as long as people hold on to these awful, terrible, bigoted ideas. But we just got to raise up other people in the stead who don't believe in all this nonsense and who are willing to call them out on it. So if you guys haven't seen this, I in the full clip, I did share it it's on his Twitter page. But I did retweet it some time ago, but it is like a week or two old, but it's great stuff. Don't let them win. Don't let them win, please. And I'm trying not to let them win. That's why I do my thing every day. And I thank you guys for tuning into Black Tea News and joining with me as I rant about all of this stuff and draw it to your attention. And I hope you are encouraged to not just sit down and take it, and to not just let people speak over you like that, and to say, you know what? Your policies are bad. Let's talk about that. You're not going to distract everybody by using every kind of ism in the book, and call them out on their nonsense when they show that their own bigotry. You can call them out. That's fine. They'll be all like, oh, a gasp. Call them out. Absolutely call them out. That is the show for today. Make sure you guys go to blacktnews.com. Check out different merchandise that I have. Oh, you know what? I did have this clip of Justin Trudeau. It's very short. I wanted to show it really quickly because he's talking about the convoy. By the way, they like shut down the Ambassador Bridge the other day, so it's like coming to the U.S. and because I'm not too far from that bridge, but it's really exciting to see. They're still keeping strong, even though like the police confiscated their fuel the other day. But here's Justin Trudeau.
Individuals are trying to blockade our economy, our democracy, and our fellow citizens' daily lives. It has to stop.
Who's doing that, Justin? All those things he's guilty of. All those things he's blaming on the truckers. Those are things that Trudeau is guilty of. So keep on keeping on. I gotta like edit that clip and have like arrows pointing or something. Like it's totally him doing those things. So anyway, I do have some Free Canada merchandise. If you're watching and you want to get some of that stuff, show support for the we'll rep your support. I mean, it is like to help Black T News. I'm not like connected to the convoys. I just want to make that clear. But I did it took a while to make that. So if you want to get that shirt, go ahead and get it. You would be supporting blacktnews.com. Check out other stuff we have, like the My Money, My Business shirt. And of course, I am wearing my Be Better Not Bitter shirt. Go check that out at blacktnews.com. Check out different articles that we have on the website. Also, you guys know that I write books. This is a good series that you want to get. If you want some like action adventures, sort of like powers, supernatural kind of, not supernatural, but it's like X-Men sort of powers, but it's like takes place in Civil War era. You guys can check out The Color of God's Eyes and also The Song of the Devil's Lips. Got some great historical tidbits in there, worked in there. So please check that out at Black T News. It's at ninjadustpublishing.com, but if you go to blacktnews.com, hit the merchandise button, there is a banner that will take you to the website where you guys can see all this. And also, you guys know that I am in the midst of a book release, and on the 14th, if you want to pre-order the Kindle, you can right now. I encourage you to do that now while the price is at $2.99. It will go up, so go ahead and get that. I'm very excited about the release of that. If you do want a paperback, you're gonna have to order that when it actually goes live, but you can pre-order right now, so please consider picking that up. I'm very excited. I didn't release a book last year, so I'm glad to put out a new one. I write all kinds of things, mostly fiction, but I do have one nonfiction book called Slay Your Fear, which I wrote because people were losing their minds during the pandemic. So if you know someone who's still crazy, go ahead and get them that book. So thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I will see you tomorrow. Hopefully, I know there was like a segment when I was like super heated, so hopefully we'll have some more kind of joyful, fun sort of news because they have me heated with the Clarence Thomas stuff. Thank you guys.